name's Paul Merritt. It's great to be part of the SIGIS conference. I didn't get a chance last year. I want to sit on the committee. I just want to say a big thank you to the committee members. Mike, really tough to organise events like today. We've got Beth at the back there, who helps with marketing. We've got Nicola and the hosts as well. So in keeping with the summer theme, Mike talked about the 1920s. I'm going to bring it right up to the current time. And using some insights of my recent contract role I did, it was a cutover and QA lead role for a carve out. Notice I said cutover first and not QA. So this is quite interesting. It was the other way around. I still needed my software testing skills to be able to operate in that type of role. And I started to think about, we get a lot of exposure to other disciplines within software testing and how it will enable us, our skill set. And while in that role, I started to think about soft skills, but also the subtle market indicators and the types of demand. If you keep an eye on these, it'll help you align the ever-evolving testing role, because it is ever-evolving. And therefore, you can revitalize your career. And for my title, it is Alive and Thriving. A little bit about myself. So I spent 20 years working for global consultancies. Last year, I decided to set up my own business and go contracting. I don't know if that was brave or just stupid, given the market climate. I started out as a games tester, again, by chance. I took some notes earlier. Some of the other presenters, just like Maddie, he fell into it, and I kind of fell into it. So I started out, as I say, as a games tester, progressed up to a director, helping shaping QA and delivering on large programs, large complex programs, but also building global test shared services, helping organizations set up as a quality organization, but also then going in and assessing their quality. Sounds like they're having too much fun. Not all. But one of the biggest challenges I faced is helping clients to transform the culture of quality. That's definitely been the toughest by far. And it's not a quick fix. And I think that's a challenge. It's a journey. And also you need a set of broader skills. I'm passionate about IT delivery and leadership, but also supporting talent. I contribute to industry, so that those many roles there you can see. I'm a strong believer in living a sustainable life. And to do that, you need to look at your own life habits before you look at the sustainable elements of QA and IT, because that's the first direction of travel. We look at IT, actually, we can make a bigger impact outside of our working day. So a little bit of history around the pictures. So I was attending the AWS conference in Las Vegas, and I decided I wanted to get something out of that. I was away from home, so I did a skydive jump. It was always on my bucket list. And then I was on a family holiday in Africa, where I did the 111 meter bungee jump over the Zambezi Gorge. The bridge is actually located between Zambia and Zimbabwe. So why am I sharing this with you? I think software testing is like taking a leap of faith into the unknown. It's misunderstood, it's undervalued, and it's viewed as not sustainable. Andy talked about that earlier in his talk. I think as a result, it's seen as inefficient and a blocker in the software delivery process. And let's be honest, testing's been seen as commoditized with the race to the bottom for offshore resources, but also the theory that anyone can do testing, right? And that's a challenge we're up against. My biggest concern, it's not even on CEO's agenda, which I find odd. Because companies are wanting to transform, they want to become digitalized, they want to become software companies. But to do that, you need to have agility, you need to be agile, you need to drive CI/CD, DevOps, and you need to release software quickly and have high quality. However, another challenge we come up against is the testing role continues to evolve. I think we have a micro focus on it as well, and we get quite upset by it, rather than embracing it and getting on board that it is changing and it should change. So I think as we overcome those challenges at a company level, but also an individual level, if we adopt these pragmatic approaches, it helps us to stay relevant and in demand within line with how the industry is evolving. So let's start with an interesting fact. What's the top skill for anyone who's in QA or software development? Anyone like to have a guess?
Communication.
Hang on. Communication and interpersonal skills, which, you know, it's not really talked about. Testing's a very social role. It's highly collaborative. You need emotional intelligence. You need to be a negotiator. You need to be an active listener. We also get involved in conflict resolution, and we have to have patience because people just don't understand it, right? And also the tight deadlines as well. And these skills are not solely focused on software testing. I also believe that these skills are not focused enough on during the recruitment process because it's easy to flip over to the technical side. So reflecting on this, I was thinking about some recent software failures, and boy, the list is long, and I'm sure you've got some as well. And these are not small companies. Ticketmaster, Dell, Dropbox, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Azure, all data hacks, Pfizer vaccination rollout, Tesla autopilot crashes. My goodness, the next one I paused. The UK's nuclear Trident missile failure. And that's there to protect us. And there's a whole host of banking, retail, Sainsbury's, Tesco's. These are not insignificant. These have a societal impact, but yet software is not on the CIO's agenda. Corners are being cut, and there's a belief that you can simply release software without testing. So let me take you back to the role, the QA role I did at the demerger. So it was infrastructure as a service, software as a service, very different type of testing. You're not looking at your functionality, you're looking at integration points within that ecosystem, and platform as a service. And there seems to be a notion in industry at the moment that DevOps is dead and everyone's moving to a platform as a service. And I can understand why. Because if you have a core set of developers, I'll include QA in there, who can manage the infrastructure, manage the data, and you can build, tear down, rebuild that infrastructure and that testing components without the need to go to external consultancies, etc. So the company, the cross commodities pricing agency, 100 years old, about 800 people, listed on the London Stock Exchange. Think of it as a global B2B company where you've got agricultural forest products, you've got metal and mining, you've got pricing, analytics and events. It was a private equity backed separation program. And the idea behind the program was to separate from its parent company, become a standalone entity, and then further afield in the future to grow through acquisitions. Pleased to say, 3rd of July, it successfully went live. Program had 8 different types of suppliers, all doing modern engineering, but in a different way. So subtle nuances, really difficult to get the breadth and the detail analysis on there. And then 10 work streams. Now the work streams were across all your typical business functions. So HR, finance, the digital platform. So building up a new SRE capability. That SRE capability would then manage and look at the core applications. And then some of the unusual ones, which I got more involved in, I found really interesting: security, legal, regulatory. And there's a real mix of lift and shift application, rebuild but new. And the aim was to deliver a minimum viable service using best practices, out-of-box solutions, minimal customization, and scripting to get that business live. So it got me thinking about the skills in demand, and I've kept them high level on purpose because testers can fit into each of those areas quite easily. And there was a skills report last year by Forbes Advisor. This was quite astounding. 93% of businesses said that there's an IT skills gap. And it's mainly due to the technical rapid advancement. We can't keep pace. People misunderstand what tools they need, what language they need to use. Low attraction of IT, believe it or not. It's not a sexy career path for some. and a lack of diversity. There was Teresa Almeida and Dr. Grace Logan from the London School of Economics recently published some research paper on inclusion. And they found that the top 1% earners, only 19% are women. Now, we all know today we have diversity issues. It's not just sex, it's not just female, male, it goes much wider than that. And we talked about diversity as well. So I wanted to shine a light on skills in demand. And it's a very different view. So if you look at mobile application testing, it's due to grow to 32 billion US dollars by 2034. Automation, they say it every year, next 4 years, it's going to continue to grow to 30 billion. These are not small numbers. And it's growing due to the increase in continuous delivery, continuous integration. It's a compound annual growth rate of 16%. Load testing, again, that's rapidly increasing. It helps reduce OpEx, but also because of the cloud solutions as well, the adoption, it's easier to integrate. And then you've got IoT, and it's been quite quiet on IoT. But again, that's anticipated to grow by 30 billion by 32. And that's an annual compound interest rate of 33%. So for me, there's something missing because these numbers in terms of growth don't stack up to the available roles that's available on the market. And I feel the market's going through an adjustment. We're hearing quite a lot of negative publicity, maybe some panic as well. Larger companies are taking up a lot of the roles, so a lot of the consultancies have zapped up those roles. And I guess I acknowledge it's probably the toughest market for the last 25 years, especially for senior tech professionals. And perhaps the adjustment that's underway and the massive amount of layoffs will correct. Because also there's a number of other factors like AI, IR35, COVID, Brexit, and reorgs and mergers. So there's not one simple answer. It's also dependent on the industry you work in. So what was I asked to do? And I boiled it down to 3 areas. I'm going back to my my cutover in QA role. I was asked to establish a consistent and repeatable and sustainable approach to releases, enhance the current cutover process, and assess the status of QA at any given point across the program, and then maintain transparent dialogue. An easy task, right? Not when I should have been in the role 12 months previously, everything's on the critical path and there's only 6 months, and it's a bit like the Wild West. I'm sure, you know, as testers, we can all relate to that. And again, this is not simply pure software testing. You need to have that fundamental software testing knowledge and expertise to operate successfully. So despite regular workstream lead connects and program reviews, the project dates were proving to be a bit elusive. It's a trend here with testing and project and delivery. So the lack of clarity made it really challenging to effectively capture the as-is, accurately report the status was, especially during the go-live negotiations. The go-live dates were moving on. So what did I do? First of all, you need leadership buy-in, and you need to be clear on your communication to get that leadership buy-in. Each release was assessed, and we went through a set of key milestones. Think of it as dev and test complete, pre-cab check, change board review, cab review, handover to BA. And then what I also did is I actually defined the criteria for when projects went into cab, and I led the whole entire cab process. So again, the scope of the ask was much wider than QA. However, I still needed those QA skills. And I still need the soft skills, deliver. Going back to the communication, being clear and concise on the scope, but also the purpose and the outcomes of the role I was in, but also realign it and reaffirm it to the project's aims. That way you stay relevant and people don't see you as a blocker or an extra admin or an additional cost, which we normally get seen in testing. So be clear on the value I brought and ensure stakeholders' expectations are also clear, but also met. So bring them along the journey and help the program understand multiple sources of data, because I had to utilize my negotiation skills, become that active listener, share ideas, and I didn't want to be the one who was miscommunicating or sharing the wrong status or the wrong grade. Or I also needed to be patient. There's that thing in you around wanting to assess and get things out the door, but it's all very rushed because all the releases are coming in last minute. But you still need to, it's a fine balance, right? You still need to assess it, view it, give your unbiased view. Because we won't say whether it goes live or not. That's outside of our control. But still do a good job and still not be seen as a blocker. So I started to look on social media and LinkedIn, and it got me thinking about this exposure to the other roles, especially with my cutover hat on. I was getting exposure to information technology, really exciting. It's a framework. It's some numbers, it's a checklist. I haven't done that before, but I started to think about transferable skills. And I started to question, what are those skills needed in the separation program? And also, how are those skills within testing and the wider industry? And could I future-proof myself? Because we all want to maintain, alignment with where industry's going. We don't want outdated skills. And it's a real balance in there. You need pragmatism. You want to have that structure and that governance in place, but at the same time, you don't want to over-engineer it. You don't want to see it as that blocker. So what I was tasked with really sits more within the project management space and leadership, designing a set of milestones, but I also needed my soft skills. So I come up with two aspects. There was the go live readiness role, and then there was quality engineering leadership. And I reflected on these challenges because we have to overcome these challenges due to inaccurate perception of other disciplines have on us. I also thought to myself, if we're pragmatic, then we overcome these inaccurate perceptions. And I'm going to quote this because this was a real eureka moment for me. But I've got a lot of thoughts going on in my head around market demands, skills, the testing role evolving. In a recent talk, Martin Fowler and Dave Farley accurately defined the challenge we have to overcome in software development. I'm going to quote this because this is really good. We are in a profession which can't really measure our output and productivity effectively. Just think about that. And when we can't do that, it makes it much more harder to effectively use scientific methods on ourselves. What trips us up as an industry is it appeals towards mathematics. These types of minds enjoy solving problems in software. And the problem is we are looking for too much precision. And what we're talking about here is sociology, and it's not the same as physics. I'm sure you've heard before, software testing is both a science and an art. And I'm sure that's one of the misunderstandings. The focus is on the technical skills. We also need a better way to explain the softer skills within the testing world. I don't think there's any secret sauce to resolve it. So looking at it in terms of communication, your role, why have you turned up? Why did leadership put you in that particular role, that contract role? You've got to share the value. You've got to communicate clearly. You've got to use business language. We've talked about this for many years. I think at times we get excited about testing terminology and it's quite confusing for the business. And when they get confused, then they start to switch off and they think we don't add value. You need alignment with the executive team for decision making, because at that point in time, it's not us that's going to make the decision for risk acceptance. It's not our responsibility. Pragmatism, but also adaptability. It's that time, cost, quality triangle. Within an efficient time, it was never going to be possible for me to look at all of those 8 suppliers, the ways of working, test approach, their strategy, their development operations. So you have to look at a risk-based approach, I guess. Good old-fashioned, let's look at the likely areas of failure. Let's look at the highest risk. And if things go wrong, let's just adjust it and make small improvements. It's a very agile world we live in. But you need the buy-in for that. Otherwise, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of blame game, You need a good leadership team behind you. And accurately reflect on the multiple sources of information. So we want to be the people that leadership come to and ask us for the status in an unbiased way, but also in a non-threatening way from a release perspective. You know, we can go live. There are some risks, and it's the diminished return of investment, isn't it? We could put another 5 testers on there, but actually we might find a handful of defects, and they're not critical. User journeys are still working, so let's go for it. In terms of the go live readiness, there's a lot of transferable skills. I think sometimes we get too much focus on testing. We can dip our hands into other roles, other disciplines, other areas. Maddie talked about it. She came from operations and finance. You know, we should celebrate this. It gives us that diversity, that clarity of thought, rather than for some reason we finger point and go, oh, so you didn't start off as a tester. Well, I started off as a developer. I've always been coding. So what's wrong with you? It's quite strange. And each of these, when you look at them, we test regulation. We'll test more with AI and the onset of the EU regulations that have come in. Absolutely sure. Development, deployment packages. Again, you can have test packages. You've got a lot of skills here which you can transfer over. Their checklists, their reviews, their standards, their frameworks. So I don't see why we can't do that. Again, we get ourselves very focused and we want to test, and that's all we do. Sometimes we might, you know, they say sidestep just to get us out of a role. I was still confused. Lots of an example, and it frustrates me. You see an automation tester role on LinkedIn. Why are they talking about automation specifically? They've just gone straight in. So testing is much bigger than automation. Why? And again, we can't even use QA because it might, are you a tester? Are you technical? We're very confused about it. So let's call it QA. So why don't they advertise a QA role? And in the description, you talk very heavily around frameworks and languages. Because when I review it, I go, I need automation skills. That's an automation role. Just a thought I want to share. And the market's very distorted and confused. So remember, testing's only been around for the last 50 years. We heard Dorothy this morning talking about her career for the last 35 years, and you could see the phenomenal changes. Testing, I think, will always be around. We're moving away from that traditional silo test phases to a much more holistic approach. Earlier, I talked about, you know, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. And by having that wider breadth and depth of skills, you don't hold up, if you like, the development team or the software pipeline. But there's clues everywhere indicating where you can focus on, because I think people are a bit rabbits in the headlights at the moment, a bit confused. There's not a lot of roles being advertised. They don't know where to look. They don't know how to help themselves. If you look at the Accelerate State of DevOps report, software delivery performance, there's a high rate of failure, 64% for those companies who release just once a week or once a month. How are they resolving those issues? Surely they need testers. State of Agile report, time to delivery is no longer the top software development goal. Again, that surprised me because you need to release features, you need to release them defect-free, so that the customer journey is okay. Seems to be the other way around for me. Deloitte's quality engineering trend report in the middle talks about the current and future technology considerations. I think this is out of date already. Those areas, DevOps, Agile, cloud adoption, intelligent automation, we've all got delivery challenges there. I love the World Test Report. That's probably my favorite in terms of invaluable insights. But again, if I've underlined the key opportunity areas for us. Again, it's at odds with the market. First one, we're seeing a rise in QA functions across DevOps, but this is not true if you look at the market. End-to-end automation and test activities, it's going to be, you know, the orchestration is going to come together, but there's so many tools on the market. Which tool do you use? What skills do you need? Test infrastructure, test data, not just test, it's organizational data. There's challenges there, and there always will be. And I started to think about, how do I package those up? And I came up with reliability, scalability, maintainability, and operational insights. And if you look at those areas and focus on developing your skills, then you align with the movement around platform as a service, and you stay relevant. Even if you look at the challenges, the major challenges within testing, companies are struggling with automation, they have limited time, they have immature processes. And the sad thing is we're not masters of our own destination at times. And that's sad because we have other disciplines telling us how to evolve, types of work we can and can't do. AI is a very good example. You've got a lot of well-established individuals who moved out of test, they've now come back in, and they're kind of riding on that AI wave. Nothing wrong with that, but again, it goes back to that adaptability. Just because you're a tester doesn't mean you don't test AI or you can't be an AI expert. But also, we need to be wary of the Gen AI software platforms that are coming, because there's a massive explosion, and a lot of them haven't been tested correctly. They don't have test teams behind it. They have data analytics and scientists. During the introduction, I talked about the biggest challenge I faced is around helping clients transform culture of quality. If you look at the recent DORA report, I think this is echoed at the software development level. There's ongoing trends and challenges around the DevOps landscape. It's about culture of trust, collaboration, with a focus on leveraging continuous improvement, allowing the team to become high performing. We hear that a lot. Why is it high performing? It's that feeling of safe, being able to make mistakes, share ideas, but also knowing that there's no consequences on the back of that, i.e. being sacked, right? I also looked at the latest TMI benchmark report for financial services, and it showed the whole shift left. I was doing shift left at Vodafone about 10 years ago. Shift left's not been fully adopted in system test, UAT test, which means a slower pace of introducing automation into operations. But yet in the media, everyone's doing CI/CD and releasing hourly. All companies are not the same. We know companies operate at different maturity levels. Some are struggling with transformation, others agile setup and delivery, and others embedding QA. Less than half of those are delivering in DevOps CID way. And the market illustrates, which we talked about in the previous slide, lots of software delivery challenges. However, no greater demand for software testing. I also found a survey around sort of the challenges ahead. 7 reasons why tech projects fail. 25% of tech projects fail. 50% have no return on investment. Another 50% have massive rework. Surely that's a job for us, right? So cost of quality is high. Quality seems to be getting worse, despite quality being everyone's responsibility with a whole set of, onset of agile. Reputational damage due to system failures and outages is increasing. You can't see it there, but last week, Keith Savin, he's a director at KPMG. He was talking at Eurostar, day 3, keynote, put up a slide, and on there, I thought it was very relevant. It said testing was slow, expensive, not technical. Believe it or not, it's unnecessary. And those are the challenges, misconceptions. So my suggestion is look for guidance in the market. So look at the job specs. The World Economic Forum regularly publishes reports on future jobs. And look, software testing is due to grow by 72 billion. That's massive. Follow the growth industries, manufacturing, retail, financial services, also, unfortunately, defense at the moment with what's going on in the world. Look where the fastest growing roles are: sustainability, digitalization, AI, technology. More importantly, broaden your skill set and look out for the nuances within industry. And while you're diversing the types of roles you fulfill, and get to know the business so that you can add value and you remain relevant. move away from only testing skills. It's that broader software skills and the soft skills that are going to be needed. Critical design thinking, strategic thinker, societal impact, sustainability. There will be a growing need for QA leadership across the broader range of software testing principles. By being adaptive, embracing pragmatism, communicating the value you bring, you stay relevant. I just believe companies haven't figured out this yet. However, the good news is there's more optimism, there's more opportunity in the market. It's starting to pick up. Thank you. Any questions? Anyone want to share any thoughts?
There was a recent BBC Panorama documentary on immigration, and they interviewed a project leader that said, this is about the skills, why are we recruiting UK staff? And he said, this is not finding skills, we have to be in the BCS member, middle-aged people who are wanting to return to work, and the door. I mean, graduates who've got their degrees and they can't do it. So is the skills gap real, or is it misconception? What sort of pragmatic ways we can solve that problem, that mismatch?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, this touches on the whole education process. Like, we're not educating our children and our people who leave university not fit for work. They've got your degree. I was at the Oxford milk rounds, and I was talking to some of the Oxford graduates, and they were like, I've done physics. What can I do? Well, I was trying to explain in consultancy, you could maybe use that as a baseline and get into, science, and there's a bit of, linkage there, or forget about it. That's just a springboard into consultancy. I think we need to arm our children with better skills. There is a skills, but also it's the expectations of the client as well. Very recently, they're looking for 35 years and they need to have all sorts of language, and it's just bonkers. You just don't have that expertise. You have to understand, some people decided to specialize. And I was quite impressed. My focus was I wanted to be utilized. When redundancies came around, I wasn't on below that line. So I've got a broad spectrum of many industries, where some of my colleagues went down financial services route and they went down card payment. But then there's a problem in that industry. They're stuck in that industry. Yeah, it's a big one, that one.
Recruiters too idealistic and wanting to hit the ground.
Yes.
They want someone ready.
We have an ex-recruiter here.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I know that. I mean, sorry. I mean, there's two aspects. There's recruiters wanting a very, very long list of specific things that have to coincide, and lots of years of them, and they need that in a very young person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you've got lots of experience, but you did it 5 years ago, well, nobody wants that, Grandad. 5 years ago, it's history, man.
Yeah, there's also a lack of, you've got the skill, maybe you haven't used it in the last year or two, but you've still got the skill.
Yeah. Sorry, anyway, bit of a rant.
Sorry, I'm just going to wrap things up there. So can we have one more round of applause for Paul?
Thank you.